Special thanks to my patron, Jack Joseph Velarde, for requesting this video topic. Hey! Hi! How you doing? This is the Gamertron, and welcome back to the Gamertron Show. In this video, we have a truly fascinating topic of discussion concerning video games. And that is the subject of Ludo-Narrative Motherfucker! So it turns out, YouTuber Game Revo beat me to the punch in terms of talking about this topic. All joking aside, Game Revo is an awesome, underrated YouTuber, and you should really go check out his channel and his video on Ludo-Narrative Dissonance. However, here and now, let me share with you my thoughts, feelings, and opinions on Ludo-Narrative Dissonance. It's a topic unique to video games, and it's so very fascinating when you look at and think about it. Before we go any further though, let's get our feet wet as to what this is all about. Taking a quick gander over at Wikipedia, Ludo-Narrative is a compound. Ludology and narrative refers to the intersection in a video game of ludic elements, or gameplay, and narrative elements. It is commonly used in the term Ludo-Narrative Dissonance. Ludo-Narrative Dissonance refers to conflicts between a video game's narrative and its gameplay. Say, for example, when a video game presents you with its cutscenes, with its story, with the dialogue. It presents certain themes and tones and ideas. Whereas with the gameplay, it's a totally different feeling that doesn't necessarily mesh with what the story is trying to be and the story that's trying to be told. A conflict of interest between the player, the person playing the video game, and the avatar as a character and their role in the world and in the plot. The best examples of Ludo-Narrative Dissonance can be found in the Fallout games, specifically Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. In Fallout 3, your playable avatar has a father in the game world, and the main story quest revolves around your avatar character searching for his or her father. Now, as a story, that makes sense. Your avatar character is in a family unit. They have a close personal relationship with the father character. It makes sense that your avatar would want to hunt down and find their father after they disappear into the wasteland. But a conflict of interest arises when you give the player, when you give the gamer the controller and or the keyboard and mouse, and they actually play the game. Because the thing about Fallout 3 is that the gameplay promotes exploration, survival, scavenging. The gameplay offers you freedom and the ability to do what you want when you want. It's not a linear experience. You can make your own story, but the game already has a pre-built-in main story, where if you just followed the main story quest and did none of the side quests, did no exploring, then you wouldn't experience everything Fallout 3 has to offer. And the Ludo-Narrative Dissonance in Fallout 3's sequel, Fallout 4, is even worse. Because now this time, your playable avatar has a voice. They have a predetermined personality, predetermined backstories and relationships. And instead of playing a son or daughter looking for their father, this time you're playing as a father or mother looking for their son. So the gameplay of the Fallout open world games is at even greater contrast and conflict with the main story quest. Because as you, the player, the gamer, you want to explore the open world. You want to scavenge, you want to survive, you want to level up. And while it makes sense for you, the player, the gamer, to want to do that, it doesn't make sense for your avatar to want to do that in terms of the story that's being presented. Your playable avatar's relationship with their family is predetermined. The dialogue that your avatar speaks leaves no shadow of a doubt that they love their son and they're going to devote everything in their power to finding their son, but the player, the gamer, may have zero interest in finding the avatar son and just wants to explore the open world and roleplay. Hopefully with those examples from the Fallout games, you're getting an idea of where I'm coming from and what exactly is Ludo-Narrative Dissonance. Let me give one more example that's more specific to me, because I didn't notice at first the Ludo-Narrative Dissonance present in Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. I had to have it explained to me. One example, one video game, however, where it was obvious for me from the get-go, but I didn't have the words, I didn't know the term to explain it. The story and the gameplay of the video game Tom Clancy's The Division. Now let me tell you about some Ludo-Narrative Dissonance with that game. The Division's story, its open world, its visuals, its cutscenes, its themes, presents a narrative of this game having a setting of a dark and gritty, realistic world, for the most part, with some secret agents, high-tech gear, and gang warfare on the side. For the most part, The Division's story, plot, theme presents something that is realistic, grounded in a sort of relatable reality. Outside of a few gadgets and gizmos, there's very little science fiction to be found. The post-apocalyptic setting, caused by the outbreak of a deadly virus, no zombies included, in this decimated, rundown New York City, is for the most part pretty believable, and I'm sure relatable to some people's experiences around the world. Surviving in a war-torn city, trying to scavenge for supplies, trying to survive bloodthirsty gangs. And yet, when we look at the Division's gameplay, it plays like an RPG, like a looter shooter. It plays like Gears of War meets Diablo III, with health bars, statistics, DPS, character builds, player levels, enemy levels, leveling up, level caps. RPGs and looter shooters are usually gameplay designs reserved for the hardcore science fiction and fantasy genres. So the gameplay style sticks out like a sore thumb when you compare the visuals and the narrative to how the game is actually played and what you actually do in the game. Granted, that's what makes the Division kind of unique in that way. This is where I finally jump into my thoughts, feelings, and opinions on Ludo-Narrative Dissonance itself. I don't consider Ludo-Narrative Dissonance as an inherent negative. I can completely understand why it breaks some people's immersion when they realize that the main story and the narrative doesn't complement the gameplay and what the player wants to do. From my perspective, I see Ludo-Narrative Dissonance as a necessary sacrifice at times to make gameplay better in some instances. For instance, look at a game like Doom 2016. Throughout Doom's plot, or at least what you discover, what you look for of the plot, it is implied that your avatar, your playable character, the Doom Slayer, is this unstoppable badass who the demons, your enemies, are afraid of. They're terrified of you. But the actual gameplay doesn't reflect that. Yes, you absolutely feel like a badass when you mow through hordes and hordes of demons, but the gameplay can also be really challenging on higher difficulties. So you can end up having your ass kicked over and over again, and the narrative doesn't really make any sense. If you're such a badass and demons are so afraid of you, why are you dying so easily? Because the gameplay wouldn't be as fun, it wouldn't be as challenging, it wouldn't be as rewarding if demons literally screamed in terror and started crying and running away as soon as they caught sight of the player. It may be amusing and funny as hell at first, but it wouldn't be nearly as fun. So the Ludo-Narrative Dissonance that's somewhat found in Doom 2016 is a necessary sacrifice to make the gameplay more fun. So even though it separates story from gameplay, despite the Ludo-Narrative Dissonance, the narrative and the gameplay complete their roles. You are satisfied with the tale that is told, and you are satisfied with the gameplay that you played. But I understand that immersion is really important to some gamers. I can understand that. I've been immersed in video games before, and it's a powerful experience. And when you notice that Ludo-Narrative Dissonance, it can pull you out of the experience. I understand that. Hell, I've experienced it with the Fallout games. Like, I still love Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. But I no longer think as highly of the stories as I used to, because of the Ludo-Narrative Dissonance present. However, the presence of Ludo-Narrative Dissonance is understandable. I understand it. When developing video games, writers and gameplay designers aren't always on the same page. Sometimes in game development, it's impossible for them to work with one another, and compromises need to be made, either to the gameplay to benefit the story, or the story to benefit the gameplay. For example, like a certain gameplay section, changing up the gameplay, changing up the style of game, becoming more of an interactive cutscene or a QuickTime event for the sake of the story. Or at the other end of the spectrum, a really critical story and character moment, not getting its own cutscene, so that the character still is in the gameplay, still playing the game, and their gameplay experience isn't interrupted, even though this is a critical point of the story that really should get its own attention. And the story now suffers because the gamer was too focused on the gameplay to be paying attention to that important narrative drop. It can be disappointing, it can be a shame, but it's understandable. It's understandable with a product, with a work of art, with a medium as complex as video games. That sacrifices need to be made. Sometimes there are happy accidents, and things turn out okay, and you don't notice the sacrifices, the juxtapositions, the Ludo-Narrative Dissonance in a game's story, in its gameplay. But when it does crop up, when it is noticeable, it is worthwhile and interesting to talk about. Okay, there's Ludo-Narrative Dissonance present, but is it really a negative? I think it really depends on the game and the type of game that it is, and how much value the developers place on the story and gameplay, and how much the individual players, the individual gamers, put value on the story and the gameplay, because everyone, including myself, has their own personal preferences and tastes. Some people mostly play video games only for the sake of stories, for good storytelling. Some people just don't give a damn about story. They're here for the gameplay. They're here for the physical interactive experience. They're here for interaction. They're not necessarily here to have a story told to them. So I really think it depends on the type of video game and the type of gamer playing that video game whether Ludo-Narrative Dissonance can really be considered a negative or not. Because I understand from a video game developer point of view, looking at it from their perspective, that sacrifices need to be made. Yes, the story and the gameplay may not necessarily mesh well. A divide may be created between the two, but a decision needs to be made as to what is more engaging, what they believe, what you believe to be more engaging. And this leads to and creates a lot of discussion, a lot of conversation between video games, their storytelling, and their relation to gameplay. So I really want to hear in the comment section down below your thoughts, feelings, and opinions on Ludo-Narrative Dissonance, how you've experienced it in video games, and how much you value video game storytelling and gameplay and how they mesh with one another. Is your immersion more important to you? Do you value immersion between the story and gameplay more so than having a better story or a better gameplay experience? I think there's a lot to say, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to this topic, so let's get talking. Let's have a conversation in the comment section down below. However, for now, this has been a video, and I hope you liked the video. If you did indeed like the video in any way, shape, or form, please be sure to hit the like button. Hitting the like button helps you, helps me, helps everybody involved with the video. If you hit the like button, if you want to help out and support this video, then please share it on social media, Twitter and Facebook. And if you want to help out and support me directly, well, there's always Patreon. Anyways, guys, that's been a video, and I'll see you all later.